Go ahead and record on the computer. All right, so we're recording now. That's such a cool picture, Manuel. That crown, that's dope. But okay, guys. So what you guys are essentially going to be learning today is there's two ways, right, to analyze something. So just the same way that in life there's multiple ways of doing something, you don't have to do one thing the same exact way every single time, right? You can find other solutions. There's multiple ways of doing it, right? So like, for example, 2 times 6 is 12, and so is 3 times 4. You see what I'm saying? They both equal 12, but it's just a matter of what and how are you doing it, and how many ways can you do it. You see what I'm saying? And just being, conscious about that and knowing that there's fundamental analysis. And write this down if you guys have like a notebook or something, because this is, just to understand these concepts. You have the fundamental analysis, right, which is basically just news. And you can trade off of the news, you can trade off of the psychology and just how everything works in that nature. Or you can trade using technical analysis, right? And technical analysis is basically just the technicality of things, just the exact same, where price is at, where price is closing, what's the trend, patterns, and things of that nature, right? So those are the two ways that you can, let me go ahead and, so yeah, those are the two ways that you can analyze, right? Anything in terms of where the market is at and what market is doing. And so where I was going to give you guys an insight on those two things is on the confirmations that we were speaking about last week, right? So the confirmation based off of your candlesticks, and also just market action in terms of patterns, and how fundamental analysis goes into both of these trading techniques, right? So when you think of candlesticks, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can just I'll listen to some Frank Ocean,
that boy.
So, okay, right here, this is just a little, this is what candlesticks are, right? That's what they're called. And in terms of the technicality of things, when you're trading these with a technical analysis, what you're basing your theory and your, the way that you're going to decide what you want to do and what, the sentiment of the market is based off of the structure of the candle, which is basically just technical analysis, right? So you can see that price opened up right here at 3. Let me move this. Price opened up here at 411.55. As you can see on my right side, I have the price, and it went all the way up to 424, and then eventually it came all the way right back down to 402. But eventually it closed right at this level at 424. So that's exactly why this is green, right? Because it opened here and it closed there. And these have a significance also. They're called wicks, right? So it's these like long little pointy things that are coming out of these candles. Those are wicks, and that's relatively where price went, right? That's as far as price went, but it didn't close there. It's just showing you that on the daily, right, that's where price went, but it ultimately didn't close there. It closed at this level here, and that's the body of the candle, right? So that's how you can identify it on a technical standpoint. Now, what I want to really give you guys an insight is to how to use these with fundamental analysis, right? And a lot of it is also just understanding where the news is coming from, what news is really saying about this specific stock. So this one's Apple, right? And essentially, on a technical standpoint, you can say, okay, the momentum and the volume is here because we have such a large green candle, right? And obviously, in comparison to the red candles, they are, the red are smaller than the green. So therefore, it just shows that momentum and that volume that's really showing in the markets. And that's how you can identify a bullish trend, right? So that's technical. And then now we've moved to fundamental. It's more of the way that you have to identify these with the whole psychological aspect is you have to really understand, right, that these these markets, they weren't made for you and me. They weren't made to give me the best the best opportunity. They basically, the way that it's structured, right, the way that the candlesticks are in conjuncture with red, right, because the greens, they give you a sense of just kind of an emotion, right? The green will kind of give you that sense of um just like, happiness and wealth and fulfillment, and that gives the narrative of, hey, I feel good about, and I feel confident about this company, I'm going to invest. Because you always see people who normally like just typically buy stocks, they just buy on green days, right? Because their psychology is to the point where they're like, hey, this looks like it's going up, I'm just going to buy it. And then we have a day, the next day, that's red, right? And it shakes them out, right? Because they, and then on conjuncture for the red, that psychologically kind of appeals to the mind to give a sense of fear, to give a sense of uncertainty. And what do people tend to do when they feel afraid or they feel uncertain? They sell it. They don't want anything to do with it. They just push it off, right? So the thing that we is we're using our fundamental analysis to dissect that, to be able to read that, to know that, hey, there is psychology behind this. Because when you look at these candles, you shouldn't see just price action. You shouldn't just see price. You should also see that in these candles, they're people, right? They're everyday people, just like you and me, that live and breathe, and all they're doing is just trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, right? It's just make money, all right? But whenever that type of mindset comes into play, then the candlesticks can basically hijack that mentality to use it against you if you aren't aware, right? If you're aware of these, subsidies, then you can then do something about it. And that puts you 5 to 6 steps ahead of people, right? Because now you understand that there is psychology behind this, and the way to then prove it is based off of just you yourself applying it, and you yourself reading it, and you yourself going and just being aware, right? Because you can see it, right? It's one thing to see it, but it's a whole other thing to be aware. You see what I'm saying? Because once you're aware, then you actually know, and you are then able to apply it. And that's how you can then test if it's true in your sense. But we're telling you, right, Blue Vision is giving you that wealth in terms of knowledge, and we're giving you that to show you that, hey, look, there is psychology behind the candlesticks and what they're meant to do to you psychologically speaking. So be aware and be ready, because that's something that could either shake you or make you, right? Dang, Dr. Seuss back at it again with the rhymes. Yeah, so that that's just to give you guys an idea in terms of fundamental and then technical analysis when it comes to candlesticks. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know we went over the technical side of candlesticks, but I just wanted to give you guys a more in-depth kind of idea in terms of
that boy Tony lit on the Friday night.
yes, ma'am. Olin. Yes, ma'am. We are here. I don't see any questions, so I hope everybody understood that. But yeah, and then what I also wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys about is, think about it, right? We went into it in terms of the psychology behind it, right? So now you're aware that, okay, psychologically speaking, this is true in the markets, right? Because these candlesticks are people, and people, they move in a certain way, right? People and just humans in general, we are a species of habit. Think about it, right? You go to sleep in your bed and you sleep on the same side, every day or whatever, or you have your hairstyle in the same way for however long you can remember, there's just so many things that we do on a daily basis that's so repetitive that we probably don't even realize, but it's also just because that's how we've been taught to learn, right? That in school, it was just, hey, I'm gonna show you this, you have to regurgitate it back to me, and that's how I will know that you know this. You see what I'm saying? Like that doesn't classify someone as knowing it. I feel like it doesn't really give that emphasis on knowing, right? Because to be able to just repeat something back to somebody, that's just, people might just have really good memory, right? And I mean, that's one thing. That's just not the whole scope of things that you really need to grasp on. And and that's really just going into how to identify market structure, right? With not being able to be in that patternized kind of mentality, because these patterns, right, they also translate to the markets, right? The way that we move in terms of patterns is the same way that the markets move, right? So based off of that ideology, you can then say, okay, well, if humans work in a habit kind of way, then how does that translate to the markets? So the way that it translates is that their patterns show up in the markets, which then you being able to identify them can then allow you to trade, either with it or against it, depending on what it is that, the sentiment of the market is. So one that I really want to, emphasize, because a lot of people, they'll, I get asked this a lot, is how do you know when, price is going to reverse? How do you know when the market is going to change, right? Whether it's going down and they're trying to identify where it's going to start going back up, right? Because one thing is to try to guess where the market is going, and it's another thing to identify market structure and be able to realize where market is going to go, right? Based off of the confirmations, based off of the technical and the fundamental analysis, right? And that's how we stay 3 to 4 steps ahead of people that they just guess it. They're like, oh, it looks like it's low here, let's buy it. But it's like, what confirmation do you really use, right? And so one of the key patterns that happen a lot in the markets to show reversal patterns are head and shoulder patterns, right? And essentially what a head and shoulder pattern looks like is typically it would look something like that, right? Where then, oh, that's a horrible right shoulder. Dang, that left one was clean though, right? Y'all were like, man, this guy has some good geometry skills. And then boom, what happened there, boy? So essentially what you're waiting for to trade a head and shoulders pattern, because remember, I said it's a reversal pattern, right? So if this looks like this, essentially it's coming from, it's going up, right? It's coming up, 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 then it drops and it climbs back up to form this head. Then we climb right, we dip down to this last previous shoulder, then we go right back up, and then eventually we come back down, and that forms this pattern. Now, what we're waiting for to confirm that this pattern is happening, what we're waiting for is we're waiting for this left shoulder to be retested on this side, right? So it would look something along the lines of, right? We're waiting for this to come right back up to retest this last previous shoulder. Boom. Once that happens, that's a trigger to, sell, because that is reversing to the downside, right? So whenever that breaks this last previous support, it's now going to retest it as resistance, right? And when that resistance happens, then boom, we're selling. You can see that, we would be in a perfect execution, right? It'd be a sniper entry. So that's it on a just how you can see it. But now I'm going to show you it in the markets, right? Because it's not always that pretty. Actually, that one wasn't really pretty, but y'all get my drift, right? So for example, right, this is one here, potentially speaking. So let me just get all these lines out of the way. Let me actually clear it all up.
Valdo.
So the left shoulder, right, if you can start to kind of just see it, right, you then don't even really need to draw it out. However, it does help, on TradingView. This is the platform, the chart place that I use to, use tools to lay everything out. So here they have a tool that already basically, sets up your head and shoulders for you. And, essentially where I see the left shoulder is right about there. We're coming back down. We're forming the head. This is the highest peak. Then we have the right shoulder form. And essentially what I was saying is you want price, right? Because this is the head and shoulders pattern. And this is a pattern that psychologically speaking means that price has been basically just gassed out. At this point, investors are looking at this like, okay, at around this level, they're starting to wonder, how are we still at the same level that we were a whole month ago, right? Because at the bottom you can see the date. So here in October and here in September, it's around the same level, right? So they're wondering, were they right here or were they wrong? But why are we still here at the same level? So psychologically speaking, that's when that doubt starts to come in. That's when that fear starts to come in, especially because look at these really big red candles, right? And remember, what did I tell you? When you're looking at these candles, you want to look at what the psychological fear is really representing. And if you can see, look at the really small green candles in comparison to the large red. So where's the momentum? Where's the volume? It's showing that it's coming down, right? So based off of that theory and this pattern and, your other confirmations to confirm that, hey, okay, we broke it, right? We broke it right here. We retested it once. We retested it twice. Boom, we're coming down. And then even then, this could have been another perfect entry to get back in, right? If you would have wanted to add more to your position, because based off that, now we realize that, okay, this is forming out to be a head and shoulders pattern. Let me add to my position around here when it comes right back up. But I'm still in profits regardless because I sold here off of that, off that break and that retest. And then now we're coming down. You see what I'm saying? So this is one of the patterns. There is also, does anybody have any questions about this head and shoulders, this reversal pattern? Because I'm going to go ahead and get into an inverse, which is the opposite way. All right. Osvaldo said, what's up? Hey, what's up? So the other way that, you could use this reversal pattern is you can use it inadvertently, right? Which means just inverse. And essentially what that means is it's just the head and shoulders, but it's upside down. And it'll then allow you to get a really good confirmation that price isn't going to keep going down anymore, right? Price is going to reverse and it's going to go up. And based off of just looking at this chart, I can see a really beautiful one right around here, right? Because we had that, right? We had that momentum coming down, but then eventually, we switched up, we went right back up. And why, right? To be able to identify why, you want to get deeper into the scope. Right now I'm looking at the 1 hour, right? But I can already see that here we have that head and shoulders, right? We started around this area here. We formed that left shoulder. We formed that head. We came back. We created that other shoulder. And then now look at that inverse head and shoulders, right? And the same concept applies. You want to wait for this level around here, your left shoulder, to break, right? As we did here, we broke it, and then we came back to retest, and off we go, right? Off we go to reversing, because now, psychologically speaking, people are wondering, why are we still at this price here in April, right? When in March, it was the same price, but now, right, we're in 2020, the new iPhone just released, there's like meetings going on about, that's the fundamental side of things is, they just announced the new stock split or whatever is going on in terms of news. You want to be aware, and you want to be aware of the reversal patterns and the way that humans, psychologically speaking, work and move. And so this is the most biggest one that, in terms of a confirmation that you can use to your advantage, because now the markets aren't hijacking your mentality to use it against you to, keep selling and not hold anything and lose profits or be in red. And, if you were able to identify this as it's happening, and trade it off of the confirmation, then you're in a way better place than somebody who's just buying and selling, right? And the cool and the great thing about it that you guys are also really being able to just be aware of is the fact that even on a red day, even when the stock is coming down, even when we have bearish sentiment, you can trade with that. You can short the market. Whereas other people, they don't understand that concept. They don't understand that you can make money as the market is coming down. They don't understand that concept because they're so used to the traditional, just fundamental way of things, right? It's just, oh, I'm just gonna buy this stock and then hold it for 10 years and then sell it if I get profits. If I don't, whatever. Like that's how they work. And when people obviously start to see that red in their portfolio, that's where that, whole psychological aspect really starts to kick in and really starts to show you that, hey, this is a legitimate, way of understanding things. And it's just by understanding psychology, right? So that's one of the biggest things. And also just, technically speaking, it's also really fundamentally sound to get both, right? To understand both. Because now when you're able to, fuse those together, you now have a better awareness of what's happening in the market, right? Because again, like I was saying, you could just see it and you can try to identify it, and that's one thing. But to be aware of what's happening in all aspects of everything, the psychological aspect, the fundamental aspect, the technicality of everything, that will help you to make the best decision moving forward, right? Because you have all these confirmations now that you can then apply to make the best, risk-free trade for, that's what you obviously want to do, right? Because that's what we're here to always do, is limit risk, right? You don't want risk at all. Crazy story. Just a fun fact, just in the middle of it, because it's 9:30 now. We were like 30 minutes into this. Just kind of want to share a little story, right? So when I was probably a freshman, I had a girlfriend who she her brother had gotten into some things, I don't know. He was like gang affiliated or something, Latin Kings, rep. And then what happened was he got into some trouble and he was there at the house. And my girl at the time told me, she was like, hey, just so you're aware, uh, he got into some things, something happened, and some people want to hurt him. So they went and they filed a police report and all that kind of happened, right? And I was there just sweating balls. Like I was just sweating, just sitting there, because what started flowing through my mind was, mad, at any second, somebody could come in here with an AK and just blow the whole house down, or, come with a bazooka and like just annihilate me. And now there goes my existence, right? And all because of something that I couldn't even control, right? It was out of my control. It was so much risk for me to just be there. And that was around the time that I was kind of really starting to understand risk management and all that, and like my portfolio and stuff. And it wasn't something that, I was like, hey, I should probably just keep staying here and, I'll be fine. That was a risk that I was not willing to take. You see what I'm saying? So it's how you can limit risk. And eventually I ended up breaking up with her because I was afraid to be at her house at any given time. Because, dude, I'm telling you, like, people are dumb, right? So I understand this. Some people, right? You guys are geniuses because y'all were here and y'all want to learn. And that's, you guys aren't the people that are going to be in this kind of situation because you don't surround yourself with that type of people anymore, right? The people that knew you before only knew like a piece of you that doesn't even exist anymore, right? Think of it like that. But it's just crazy, right? To think that you can limit your risk even on a day-to-day basis, right? Based off the decisions that you make. And how do you make those decisions? You have to go back to a time where you either experienced something in that nature, or you want to, just kind of make the best decision, man. Like you just gotta, know what the end result can be, right? Based off of different scenarios, different options. And that's understanding, the fundamental side of things. That's understanding the technical side of things, and then just being able to apply it, right? And so that was the story I just want to share with you guys. Do you guys have any questions for me? I know I kind of I went off a little bit there, but I just had to tell y'all that I'm serious about my risk management, Does anybody have any questions? what I also wanted to go ahead and talk to you guys also about was support and resistance, right? It's something that I'm gonna just tap on a little bit, right? Because I don't want to take up too much time. So we'll go ahead and do some support and resistance, and essentially, even when you see patterns, right? That's how you can identify when to trade, right? Is whenever we break that support and resistance, and then we retest and we go off and we trade it. So that's just, the basics. You can get a little bit more in depth on it with all these other indicators, right? Like Bollinger Bands and Fibonacci and all these other kind of indicators, which you see all these traders using that are really profitable. But those basics, those fundamentals, they really had to grasp on like what market structure was happening, where support and resistance levels were, just identifying trends and support and resistance, right? And being able to really understand those concepts help them understand those indicators, right? So as we can see, I'm gonna explain what support and resistance in terms of like a metaphor kind of really helped me understand support and resistance is, excuse me, the roof, right? The roof is your resistance. You see what I'm saying? And the floor that you're on is your support, right? Because it's holding you. Now, if you were to bust through your roof and get on top of it, that roof is now your support, right? And whatever is above you at that point is now your new resistance, right? So just the same way we broke through resistance, now that has become our new support, right? Because now we're standing on top of the roof. You see what I'm saying? That's the kind of analogy that I wanted to give that, because it really helped me understand how to trade it and how to identify support and resistance, right? And so the way that you identify this is, for example, when it touches these lines, right, these areas, right, you want to be able to tell what is happening, what is forming, and just being aware of, okay, this is now what's going to be considered support, right? Whereas on this side, we act as resistance, right? And essentially, if you draw this line out, right? Let's say none of that, hypothetically speaking, none of this has happened, right? And we have our levels set out here because this is an area that we thought, okay, it did consolidate, and then eventually it peaked and it came up, right? And this was our area of now what? Support, right? So it plays out, and eventually at some point, right? Although we went up all the way up to 326, the level 265 was eventually going to get tapped again, right? And watch what happens, right? So we touch it, right? It breaks it a little bit, but it doesn't give up. And look at the huge momentum on it to stay on it, right? So that's it. That's people battling to stay on this support. And that's, your indicator telling you, okay, hey, this is a nice area of support. If it does anything else in this specific area, I can identify what is going to happen next based off of support and resistance, right? So we come in, it plays out, just continuously going up. It's rebound, it bounced off this major support, right? And it's coming up, and then boom, eventually we come right back down. Now in this case, it's already touched it multiple times. So that kind of gives me an idea that, hey, maybe Price likes to really visit this area. Maybe Price wants to do something in this area. So the more times that it taps it, the more times, relatively speaking, is something that you want to like give it concern and really start to look at that specific level and see what plays out, right? So what plays out is we come down, we tap it, we act as support again, right? But then eventually, boom, right? We gap under it, right? So now what was previously support, right? Because then it works in the same way. Because if you break through your floor, right? Now your floor, you look up and it's your new resistance. You see what I'm saying? And now the whatever you're stepping on at the floor is your support, right? But essentially what I want you to understand is that support and resistance are the same area, right? It just depends on what happens. And how you can really identify how to trade it is you want it to break, right? Come to retest just the same way that we were doing on the patterns. Remember the head and shoulders? We wanted to break that support, and then we wanted to come back to retest and now act as resistance, right? And look at that beautiful kiss. Look at that. It said, I respect you, line. I see you, line. I'm gonna respect it. And look at and just okay, we had a green, we had a red. Ooh, but then eventually that would have shaken out anybody. That would have probably shaken me out. But you also have to then identify other support and resistance levels. And that's how you can then, right, just, it might have hit a lot of people's stop losses at this point, right? Because they were like, hey, it might just fill up this gap and that's what it's going to do, but it's holding a resistance. But then eventually it did, right? So the people who would have held and would have seen that, hey, it retested it, it broke it, it retested it, it's coming down. That's a very bearish indication that, hey, we're coming down, right? Because it's beautifully executed on that line, on that area. So you see, the person that would have held and not been shooken out, not had their take profit hit, not been psyched out, not been doubtful, would have made, and then eventually, based off of other, support and resistance areas, now you want to then secure, right, what you already have. Because if you, right, that's what I was talking about in the chats, is that trading is not about how much you can make, it's about how much you can keep. Because I know a lot of traders that on a day they were up $10,000, but at the end of the day they only got to secure 500. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that kind of scenario is gonna psych a lot of people out, and they're gonna feel like, man, like that's where either greed gets you, or that's where you just have to reshape, revisit, recoup, and just come back at it, but with a different mindset, with a different approach, with a way of, I want to keep the money that I'm making, right? And then even then, the money that you already have, how can you limit how much you're losing of it, right? That's where risk management comes in. So that's just the whole philosophy behind that. I like talking a lot about theories and philosophy, because I feel like they're proven, right? You can apply it, you can learn it, then react on it, and see yourself and be aware yourself that they are proven, and they're real, right? And we're the testaments to it. We're here to show you guys and guide you guys and show you that, yes, these levels do act as support and resistance levels. Yes, all these investors are also looking at these areas and collectively seeing that, okay, this is a support or resistance line, and based off of it, now you can identify where market structure and market sentiment is going to go. All right, does anybody have any questions on that?
No, sir.
I have my hourglass. That's Peruvian sand, but I got to switch it over because the time ran up. But man, I was really trying to I did. That was perfect. I literally executed at the last. But that's crazy, because when did I flip it over? It was like 9. Started around. Yeah, no, yeah. But awesome. Okay, guys, I hope you guys understood all that, right? That's mainly the ideal message that I really wanted to share with you guys, and the knowledge that I wanted to give to you guys is how to trade on those indications, right? How to trade based off of what you're seeing in terms of support and resistance lines, and being able to identify patterns based off of, psychological movements, and that's in the candles, right? Because one thing that I said was it like a couple weeks ago, was the way that we've been taught to learn is in just a very systematic way, where it's, again, how I was saying earlier, is they show you something and they expect you to just basically remember it and then regurgitate it at any point in time, and that's how you can then know it. And that's such a system, right? Because not everybody really learns that the best way. Some people don't have great memory, but they're really creative, and then they're really insightful, and they're really detailed, and all that kind of other stuff. but that system doesn't work for them specifically, right? So it kind of makes it feel like they're left out and stuff like that. But yeah, you want to look at the market in terms of just being aware of, you know, what everything really means, right? And how they're trying to use your emotions against you with these candles, right? Because these are just people with more emotions, and just uh letting those emotions govern their decisions, right? And whenever you're allowing that to happen, then you're really not in control, right? Who's in control at that point? Are you in control, or are you letting your emotions run you and make the decisions for you? And what kind of a result are you going to really get, right? An emotional one, for sure, because you made it off of emotion, right? And another thing I wanted to, you know, just really emphasize in terms of like my philosophy is just um don't think in terms of these candlesticks, right? You are not one of these candlesticks. That's the difference from you and the rest of the traders, is that when they see these candlesticks, they just see price, right? And then there's other people who use fundamental analysis that are like, oh yeah, all I see is people, all I see is psychology. But they themselves trap themselves in it, because then they feel like they're a part of it, right? They feel like, oh, you know, this is who I am. This is the way that I trade. This is the only way that I trade. And they're the people that only believe that the only way to get to 12 is 2 times 6, right? And then you have the other side that's like, no, it's just 3 times 4. But it's like, dude, no, there's the both of them equal 12. Like, just understand that, right? And not being in that systematic way, right? And one of the things that I talk a lot about is how the structure of these candles are, right? Because the way that, you know, they are is just it's in a box, right? Look at it. It's all just rectangles and boxes. And that was there on purpose. Like I was saying, these are not to you know, help you generate. They're here to manipulate. They're here to literally just throw you off, because you start to feel the way that, you know, you do on a daily basis, and that's just in a box. Because honestly, when, you know, you're born, right, when you're a brand new baby, when you're coming brand new into this life, where do they put you in? They put you in a crib, right? And so it's a box. You go to school, you learn in a place, you know, and then it's in the form of a box. You go to your job, you have a desk job, you know, you have your own cubicle and all this kind of, you just feel great, but you know, you have that sense of security, but you're in a box. And think about it even like this: when you die, where do they put you in? What's the shape of a coffin? It's a box. You see what I'm saying? So to be able to be aware that basically the way that the system is played out for us to be is to live and think in a box, in a systematic way. And when you're able to be aware of that, then that now becomes one of your advantages, and one of your, you know, really good, powerful tools that can help you identify patterns, can help you identify, you know, the psychology behind people, and the way that they're deciding to do, and the way that they're deciding to, you know, make something happen. And how do you decide to make something happen, right? You react off of their reaction, right? Because their reaction is the herd mentality. They're following whatever the trend is, and you're buying the dips, right? They're selling, they're afraid on red days, but on red days, you see an area of support, you're buying, right? When somebody just sold, right, like 50 of their shares, you go in on an options call and you make what they would have made in, you know, a month or two, in about a day or 2 days, however. So, right? So that's the power of leverage. That's the power of knowledge. And I hope you guys gained a lot of wealth from this. Um, do you guys have any other questions? Like, man, Tony, why do you speak so much about psychology? And like, you should just be a psych major? Do I have any questions like those? Because I might take you up on it, because it might just be something that's calling me, right? That's why I just talk about it a lot. But no, honestly, it's what's just allowed me to stay in the game, right? It's what's allowed the longevity to actually maintain itself. Because, and I said this last time, it's like when you are just ready, and you know, you stay ready, you don't ever have to get ready, right? And that's where your mentality should be shaped around. Is you want to prepare for anything to happen. And based off of scenarios or situations that have probably happened in your past, and how you felt then and what the end result was that time, then, that's how you make a decision in the future to garner a better result. You see what I'm saying? So just don't let your emotions run you. And that's it. But man, honestly, I thought we were gonna be finishing a little bit later. This is pretty much you know, the end of the road here. I'm gonna see.
Don't forget to hit stop.
Good looking out. Let me see. Okay, we're back on here. So does anybody have any questions? Or was that pretty insightful? Was that pretty knowledgeable? Did you guys understand that? I just want to see, how many people, and if anybody has any questions, again, if you thought about something or if you were taking notes, then, big shouts, big props to you. Just think about questions that you might, consider later on, and don't hesitate to ask us in the chats later on if you, just have a question about the psychological aspect of things, or fundamental or technical or whatever. Ask in the VIP chat, and we'll be happy to answer all of your questions, guys. But if there's nothing else now, then again, I truly appreciate every single one of you guys. The ones that really want to learn are the ones that are really going to win, right? Because those are the people who are really dedicated, the people who are really ambitious to actually understanding these concepts and understanding what the terms mean, right? So the more you're in this type of environment, the more that you're aware of your entire surroundings, right? Because that's what we're trying to do, is just make you aware of everything else around you. And I hope that it comes to you guys in the forms of blessings and health and wealth. So if you guys need anything else from me, again, I'm with you guys. I'm rocking with you guys. You guys are rocking with the best here at Blue Vision, right? So just keep rocking on, and we'll keep rocking.
Oh, one more thing. So we're having that $100 giveaway on Sunday. So if you haven't sent me a number from 1